you bought a house. You've been writing checks every month for 10 years, maybe 15 years. And every time you write a check, you say the same thing to yourself. This is accumulating wealth. This is planning. This is what the person in charge does. But now, in 2025, the average American homeowner will pay more than $21,000 a year. Fees that will never appear on mortgage forms. It is not the mortgage itself. It is not the down payment. All that adds up to $21,000 just to keep the house you already own. One more thing. No one wants to tell you at the closing ceremony. For millions of middle-aged homeowners in the United States and Britain, the house has not accumulated wealth year after year. It is quietly and consistently consuming it. At the end of the video, you'll see your home in a way you've probably never seen before. You might get angry, or you might feel like someone told you the truth. The most powerful financial lie in history, across the English-speaking world. The 6 words that make up middle-class financial identity are: renting is throwing money away, repeated for 70 years by parents, real estate agents, and financial commentators. The phrase forced tens of millions of people to make 30-year commitments they did not fully understand, resulting in far higher costs than renting. Before we go any further, let's talk directly about what this video is and isn't. It is not a concept of homeownership, because it is so simple that you deserve something better. It was a systematic demolition that erased the comfortable illusion that a home would automatically become an asset. Because for most middle-aged homeowners today, it is more a debt instrument than a wealth accumulation instrument. To understand why, you have to go back to how that belief was first formed. After World War II, the United States government made thoughtful policy decisions to make home purchases the foundation of the American middle class. And measures such as the GI Act, 30-year fixed mortgages and mortgage interest tax breaks work together to make home buyers feel both normal and patriotic. For a generation that bought goods cheaply in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, and then watched prices rise for decades, the bet paid off spectacularly. Their children watched and came to a seemingly obvious conclusion: a house makes you rich. Their grandchildren, ages 35 to 60, were watching the video, and they accepted the conclusion and bought the house at the moment. The math changed. Over the past 25 years, home prices have risen 19.7%, while median household income has risen only 40%. This gap, the huge gap between housing prices and people's real incomes, is where the trap lies. No one told you. In the end, when most people calculate whether they can afford a home, the math is simple. Mortgage payments, property taxes divided by income. Can I cover monthly numbers? Great. Let's sign. Such calculations are so few and almost misleading that the damage has been quietly accumulating for decades. Bankrate released a 2025 study on the hidden cost of homeownership earlier this year, with troubling headline numbers. In the United States, the average annual cost of owning and maintaining a single-family home is $21,400. Not a mortgage. Renovations alone cost $8,808 a year, the largest hidden expense in the study, and the most jaw-dropping. Fannie Mae standard budget rule is that 1 to 2% of the value of a home is for maintenance each year, compared with a median home value of $43.37.99.42. In the United States, as of mid-2025, the 2% rule puts your income close to $8,800, almost exactly the same as bank interest rates. In real-world data, none of this is the end result. That is what homeowners really spend. Maintenance costs continue to accelerate because of a troubling fact about America's housing stock. The average age of American homes is now over 40. These are not new versions, with brand new systems and clean warranties. The air conditioning, roof, water pipes, and switchboard of these houses are aging at the same time. The Joint Center for Housing Research at Harvard University found that the per capita maintenance cost of houses built before 1980 increased by 7 to 6% year on year in 2023. This is not a data exception or rounding error. This is a structural change in the demand of old owners. Property taxes add another $4,316 a year to the national average, and the direction of travel there is unmistakable. Nationwide, property taxes on single-family homes rose by an average of 27% from 2019 to 2024. According to the real estate data firm Cotarity, that is where property taxes really get insidious. When your assessed value rises, they rise. But when value softens, they don't automatically fall. In many states, the appraisal process lags, and the cap is lowered or reset only under narrow conditions, meaning you can see your home's market value stagnate while your tax bill keeps rising. Utilities across the country earn $44.94 a year, with electricity and gas bills up nearly 30% since 2021 and nearly 40% since 2019. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, homeowner insurance rose another $26.7 from the national average, but that figure is almost the most misleading in the study because it completely masks specific market conditions. Nationally, premiums rose 24% from 2021 to 2024, which sounds bad enough, unless you look at Miami, where the average homeowner now pays $4,607 a year, up 72% in 5 years. New Orleans stocks rose 70 to 9%. Shares in Sacramento rose 59%. Atlanta stocks rose 58%. In parts of California and Florida, insurers not only raised prices, but also abandoned them altogether. State-owned farms, statewide farms, farmers, major operators have been evacuated from both states, and 7 to 13% of American households are either uninsured or underinsured because insurance becomes unaffordable or simply unavailable. Internet and cable television add another $1,500 on average, and if you live in an owners association neighborhood where 29% of the population lives, the average annual HOA cost increases by $2,193 over all other costs. Taken together, Zillow and Pushpin's analysis yielded a conservative estimate of $1,597,900 a year, compared with Bankrate's full estimate of $22.14 million. That is $1,300 to $1,783 a month before the principal or interest on the $1 mortgage is paid. In New York City, hidden costs alone cost homeowners $2.04.33.81 a year. Homeowners in San Francisco are processing a $22.7781 million listing. Boston has a population of 20,000 to 13.12 million. These are not marginal items. They are the second mortgage that will never be repaid. The family did everything right, but it was squeezed anyway. The stories of David and Sarah, 48 and 46, who live in suburban Atlanta, reflect a pattern that financial advisors continue to encounter among middle-aged clients. As early as 2017, they bought their house for $322,000, prepaid 20%, $64,400, and locked in a 4.1% 30-year mortgage for $1,234 a month. In every way, it was a responsible, well-planned purchase, and both sides were doing what they were supposed to do. The house is now estimated to be worth $480,000, with book income of $160,000, which David and Sarah mentioned at the dinner, because it felt like proof that they had made the right call. But when you get a realistic picture of their finances, In 2025, book returns start to look different. Their mortgage payments have been steady at $1,234 a month, but everything around them has changed. Property tax climbed from 3,200 yuan per year to 5,100 yuan per year, an increase of 59% in 8 years. Homeowner insurance increased from 1,400 to 2,900 a year, driven by rising storm risk in Atlanta and rising reconstruction costs more broadly. Utility bills range from about 3,600 to 5,200 a year. In 2023 alone, the HVAC system died, costing $820 to replace, and hail forced some roofs to be replaced for $11,500, bringing the total maintenance cost for that year to close to $20,000 over all 8 years of ownership. The average annual maintenance cost is about $7,800. When you add all this up, David and Sarah's actual monthly cost of ownership for 2025 is broken down like this: $123.4 for mortgages, $42.5 for property taxes, $24.2 for insurance, $43.3 for utilities, and an average maintenance cost of $650, bringing their actual monthly cost of ownership to $29.84 before accidental repairs, nearly $3,000 a month, compared with about $590 for mortgages of $1,234. In 2025, what is left is the interest in leaving the family forever. Now is the number that changes the conversation. The $64,400 down payment they handed over in 2017, the down payment to go home from their investment account, is now worth about $170,800 in a diversified index fund that tracks the S&P 500. The average annualized yield on the S&P 500 from January 2017 to mid-2025 was about 13.5%. Did their bills rise over the same period? $160,000. Typically 6 to 8% of the sale price, and then after deducting transaction costs that may be incurred in the final sale. That means the $480,000 home sells for $288,000 to $380,400 after deducting these transaction costs. Its real net income from land appreciation is about $126,100, compared with a down payment of $64,400 in the same period, which will increase its index fund holdings to $170,800. Book income and real income are two very different numbers. Why buying a house quietly destroys middle-aged financial elasticity. The money story is destructive enough, but I now want more than just dollars, because it is not just the cost of buying a house. The question is what you lose when money is locked in bricks and mortar. And for people in their 40s and 50s, the consequences of losing flexibility ripple through every other financial decision they make. Trap 1. Mobile prisons. Net worth is not money. At 11 p.m., Zillow's screen looks like money. And when someone asks you how much it is worth, it feels like money. But in any practical sense, to get it, either sell the house and pay 6 to 8% of the transaction cost, which can trigger a capital gain event. Borrowing money means taking on new debt and paying interest on assets that are nominally your own. For people in their 40s and 50s, life develops costly complications in ways unpredictable. At age 35, college tuition, career disruptions, health events, elderly parents in need of care, divorce, and business opportunities that require real capital. In each case, a family with 70 to 80% net worth has little room to move. Baby boomers now have a combined net worth of about $19 trillion, compared with a median retirement savings of just $40,000 for the same generation. The affluent, cash-poor generation X, and the generation behind them are now 45 to 60 years old and moving in exactly the same direction. Trap 2. Concentration risk not identified. Every finance textbook written over the past century has laid out the same basic principle. Spread risk across asset classes and geographies. Never put everything in one place. Now look at what the typical 48-year-old American's personal balance sheet actually contains. The net value of housing accounts for 65 to 75% of the total net value. Retirement accounts for 20 to 25%. And everything else accounts for a relatively high proportion. This is not diversity. This is a large, concentrated, leveraged bet on a single illiquid asset in a single geographic market. And if the local economy weakens, major employers move, natural disasters hit, communities change in unpredictable ways, major wealth reserves will be hit directly. Unlike stock portfolios, there are no rebalancing options. You can sell 20% of your house and move it to less relevant places. Financial managers who finance high net worth clients will never build a 70% portfolio without liquidity, but that is the portfolio the middle class is told to crave. Trap 3. Refurbish the treadmill. Once someone owns a home, a profound human psychological attraction that rarely appears in financial analysis begins to emerge. Kitchens are starting to look outdated. Bathrooms need repairs. Backyards may need renovations. And because HGTV has spent 20 years defining these projects as investments, these costs feel reasonable, not arbitrary. The data tell a more sobering story. Renovations recover an average of 55 to 70% of the resale value cost of each home, according to the annual cost and value report of Reconstruction magazine, which means that a $50,000 kitchen renovation will increase the value of the house by about $35,000 to $35,000, locking in 30 to 45% of the recognized losses before considering life disruptions during construction. By early 2026, home renovation and renovation spending across the United States is expected to reach a record $5.26 billion, equivalent to hundreds of billions of dollars, flowing out of homeowners' pockets in pursuit of mathematically never fully refundable returns, according to the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard. Off-site risk. At present, the most undervalued financial risk in the U.S. real estate market has nothing to do with interest rate or employment data. This is a collapsing insurance market. And most homeowners in the affected areas have not yet fully incorporated prices into their long-term plans. Actuarial models run by insurers respond coolly to climate-related events, wildfires, hurricanes, floods, hail, that are becoming more frequent and costly. Operators exit when the model shows that it is no longer profitable to insure homes in specific areas, even if premiums increase. It happened in a documented and verifiable way in Florida, California, Louisiana, and a growing number of other states. Large insurers have withdrawn or substantially reduced coverage, leaving 7 to 13% of American households uninsured or functionally uninsured at affordable prices. For individual homeowners, this is where the financial time bomb has become a reality. Uninsured properties often cannot be mortgaged because lenders demand them. Foreclosures have sharply reduced the number of potential buyers. The decline in potential buyers has put sustained downward pressure on prices, which accumulate slowly year after year until the damage has been done, which is not obvious in Mr. Zillow's estimates. For homeowners in affected markets, the insurance crisis is not abstract because they base their entire retirement plan on the sales price they have been counting on for a decade. This poses a direct and growing threat to the value of its largest wealth reserve, quietly repricing the entire zip code. and people keep telling themselves things will stabilize. Everything in the video points to a place that isn't. Don't buy. Because it is too simple, and, in many cases, really wrong. Owning a home makes sense for real and reasonable reasons. Stability, environmental control, preventing rent increases, having the right market in the right time frame, meaningful wealth accumulation. None of this is fiction. But the 2025 data calls for replacing the default assumption with more honest assumptions that the house automatically becomes an asset and that everything will succeed as long as you keep paying. The first step is to calculate your true cost of ownership, not just the mortgage, but also the maintenance fee of 2% of the home's value, the actual property tax bill, the actual insurance premium, the actual utility cost, and, if applicable, the HOA fee. Add these numbers together and honestly compare them to the cost of comparable rental housing in a particular market. According to national data, renting now saves Americans about $400 a month, on average, compared with owning a home. A much higher gap in some markets. Over time, a sustained investment of $400 a month became a reality. The second step is to calculate the opportunity cost of the down payment. A $400,000 home fell 20%, and the portfolio remained at $80,000. Based on the historical returns of the S&P 500, the opportunity cost of a single decision over the past decade has ranged from $150,000 to $200,000. This does not automatically mean that the purchase is wrong, because stability and quality of life bring real value, which does not appear in the compound interest calculator, but knows that the cost of the choice is non-negotiable. The third step is to stress test the exit hypothesis. If the financial plan depends on selling the house at or near its current valuation at some point in the future, this assumption needs to be rigorously tested. What happens if the value of the local market falls 15% within a decade, or if insurance costs make it harder for future buyers to finance the property, or if liquidity is needed before the market recovers from the downturn? None of this is prejudice. They are the basic risk management that applies to the largest assets that most households hold forever. The fourth step for current homeowners is to actively protect their rights and interests. Delayed repairs destroy value at an accelerated rate. Insurance coverage needs to remain up to date and adequate. Net worth should never be seen as a permanent backstop and will be reliable when eventually needed. Actively diversifying the rest of the portfolio makes sense precisely because housing already represents such a concentrated single position. Step 5 is the hardest step. Separate emotional decisions from financial decisions. People's attachment to housing is the way they never attach to index funds. Not character flaws, but humanity. But this means that financial decisions about real estate are almost always more emotional and less analytical than they deserve. And running data, like everyone else, tends to produce clearer thinking. When the decision is to buy, renovate, hold, or sell. Bottom line, the stories you absorb. The stories of accumulating wealth when you buy. The stories of squandering money when you rent. And the net worth as a retirement plan are all built for another economic era. This is an era of cheap mortgage rates, low maintenance costs, affordable and available insurance, and a housing market where home prices reliably exceed inflation in any meaningful time frame. That era is over. In 2025, the average annual cost of concealed housing in the country was $21,400, and the cost of concealed housing in the coastal market was much higher. Real estate taxes have been rising faster than income for 5 consecutive years. Premiums can rise 24 to 79% anywhere, depending on where you live, and in some areas coverage is disappearing altogether. The median home value in the United States has exceeded 40 years and is in the most expensive maintenance stage, with renovation spending expected to reach a record $526 billion by early 2026. None of this means you should never buy, but this absolutely means that you need to know what you're buying, know the full cost, know the opportunity cost, and honestly, calculate the numbers, which is not natural. When you make emotional investment decisions, the wealthiest people actually retire comfortably, on their terms, and they understand a difference that most people never apply to their lives. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes it out. Now, for too many middle-aged homeowners in the United States and Britain, every month someone withdraws money in a way that never appears on a mortgage form, but is obvious in a retirement account that never gets fully funded. Know your numbers and make choices with your eyes wide open. If this video changes your view of the real cost of a house, please comment below and tell me your market, because I've read everyone. If someone you know is making a major housing decision now, try to figure out whether to buy, sell, or stay in your 40s and 50s, and send it to them. They need to see the full picture before making a decision.